VO2 max, your cardiorespiratory fitness, is one of the strongest, most measurable predictors we have of longevity. So getting your training strategy right matters. It's a core part of your longevity plan. And in this video, I'm going to show you the most effective way to build it as a woman, especially if you're time crunched and don't have hours to dedicate to cardio. And if you want to improve your biological age markers, grab my free guide, 10 habits that help me reverse my biological age. The link is in the description below. Now, HIIT versus Zone 2. What's best for women in midlife? You want sustainable high performance, real energy, clear thinking, strong training and recovery that doesn't leave you wrecked. And today we're tackling one of the most confusing questions in fitness. Should you do HIIT or Zone 2 training? Here's the truth. It's not either or. Zone 2 and HIIT do different jobs, and once you understand what each one is for, the decision becomes simple. I'll walk you through the exact framework I use with midlife clients to program this safely. Zone 2 is moderate intensity, roughly 70 to 75% of max heart rate for many people, where you can speak in full sentences, but you definitely can't sing. Zone 2 builds your aerobic base. This is your foundation. It's your ability to produce energy efficiently over time. And the stronger your Zone 2 base, the better you tend to respond to interval training later. These two support each other. Zone 2 increases mitochondrial health, your energy producing capacity. These adaptations can be measured most easily in muscle tissue, but the signal that drives them, higher fuel demand, higher blood flow, higher energy turnover, has whole body benefits. A stronger aerobic system usually means you recover better between bouts of hard effort, both in the gym and in life. The trade-off is that Zone 2 tends to require more time or volume, often 30 to 45 minutes per session for meaningful cardiovascular adaptations. Walking is phenomenal for metabolic and brain health, especially after meals. But if your heart rate stays too low, it may not be enough to significantly improve cardiorespiratory fitness in women unless you're deconditioned and just starting out. Now, one other thing to mention is if you've tried Zone 2 and thought this doesn't really do anything for me, here's what you need to know. In the Heritage study, there was a subset of people who looked like stubborn responders to lower intensity aerobic training at first, roughly around 40% of them. But the key takeaway is this: that doesn't mean you're a non-responder. It usually means you need a different dose, more frequency, more volume, or a strategic layer of intervals. There's basically no such thing as a true non-responder to exercise when you adjust the input, because you can add in some HIIT, and all people seem to respond to HIIT. HIIT, or high intensity interval training, is short bursts of intense effort followed by recovery periods. And HIIT's really powerful because it's time efficient and it delivers a very strong training signal. Here's what HIIT improves. It improves your VO2 max, your total aerobic capacity, cardiorespiratory fitness, and performance capacity. It helps with mitochondrial adaptations, metabolic health, and insulin sensitivity. HIIT increases mitochondrial function by about 27.5%, slightly higher than Zone 2's 23%. And these improvements happen across your entire body, not just your muscles. The data suggests that women respond to HIIT and Zone 2 similarly to men when training is matched appropriately. Meta-analysis pooling large numbers of studies, including an analysis of 38 studies, show HIIT can significantly reduce body weight, total fat mass, and abdominal fat in women. And HIIT can be done as micro-intervals, longer intervals, or sprint-style work. The structure matters less than actually matching the dose to the recovery amount that you need. Both Zone 2 and high-intensity work help your brain in different but really complementary ways. Zone 2 supports brain health by building the cardiovascular and metabolic foundation, better baseline blood flow, better glucose control, and more mitochondrial support. That matters for mood, energy, and long-term cognitive resilience, especially in midlife when sleep and stress can be more fragile. But very hard efforts, what we call Zone 5, tend to create a bigger signal per minute. Higher intensity spikes cerebral blood flow and vascular stimulus, and it produces lactate, which can cross the blood-brain barrier and act as a messenger that's linked with BDNF. BDNF is a key factor for neuroplasticity, learning, and brain protection. You're also recruiting more fast-twitch muscle fibers, which releases myokines that communicate with the brain. So think of it like this: Zone 2 builds the base, Zone 5 sharpens the signal, and combining them is a really powerful strategy for focus, memory, and long-term brain resilience. The most common mistake I see in high-achieving women is going all in on intensity, especially when life stress is already high. So it becomes hard training, plus demanding work, plus poor sleep, plus caffeine, and then the results stall, recovery tanks, and injuries can show up. The goal isn't always more intensity. The goal is the minimum effective dose you can recover from consistently. And rule number 1 is don't get injured. There's a model from the late Dr. Doug Padden-Jones that's really useful here. He describes muscle loss in aging as catabolic crisis. We don't always lose muscle gradually year after year. A lot of loss happens in big drops after injuries, illness, or long layoffs, and that's when you have to restart from your baseline. So in midlife, the goal isn't to prove how hard you can train. The goal is to train in a way that you can repeat for years, because consistency is the real advantage. Use this progression hierarchy. Increase frequency first, then duration, then intensity. So if you're just starting out, start walking for 15 minutes a day, and then slowly increase that to 30 minutes before you start adding in some pickups like 10 to 15 seconds of light jogging and then dropping back down to walking. And if you're doing sprint style intervals, do them on weight supported equipment, so a bike, a rower, or a ski erg, because sprinting itself, if you're running, has a higher injury risk. Here's how to program this type of training in your week. For zone 2 programming, if sleep is fragile, you're waking at 2 or 3 a.m, or you feel wired and tired, zone 2 is often the best place to start. That's 30 to 45 minutes at conversational but purposeful pace. Things like incline walking, bike, rower, jog, whatever keeps you consistent. And then HIIT program you would do once or twice a week. HIIT is a dose, not a lifestyle. Most women do best with 1 to 2 sessions per week max, especially in perimenopause. One thing that's important with HIIT is to warm up properly. Do 10 minutes gradually building up the intensity, and then add 3 to 4 short openers. These are 5 to 10 seconds, a little faster, with full easy recovery before starting your block of interval training. If you skip that piece and go hard cold, the session's going to feel worse and you carry a risk of injury. Here are a couple of science-backed HIIT workouts that you can use to increase your VO2 max. The first option is micro intervals. These are very doable and they're quick. The whole workout is reasonably short. This involves going 30 seconds hard with 60 to 90 seconds easy, and you repeat that around 8 to 12 rounds. That total interval is going to be 10 to 20 minutes. When you're going hard, it should feel challenging but controlled, and you should finish like you could do one more set with good form. Option number 2 is the Norwegian 4x4. This is a classic VO2 max builder. It's one of the most evidence-backed interval structures for improving your VO2 max, and it's very joint and tendon friendly on a bike. You warm up, 10 minutes easy, and then you do 2 or 3 short pickups of 10 to 15 seconds. Then for your main set, what you're going to do is 4 minutes hard, breathing heavy, strong effort, not a sprint. This will be about an 8 to 9 out of 10 on effort. And you follow that with 3 minutes of easy recovery, and repeat this for a total of 4 rounds. Then you can cool down with 5 to 10 minutes easy. In terms of frequency, I would start with this once a week, and then if you really want to increase your VO2 max, progress to 2 times a week max, but only if your recovery is strong. If HIIT starts disrupting sleep, increasing anxiety, or your strength training performance drops, reduce to 1 HIIT session per week, or pause HIIT temporarily and rebuild your capacity back with some zone 2. Here's a simple weekly template for the time-crunched, high-performing individual. If you can train about 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week, here's a really clean structure. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you would do total body resistance training. Tuesday, do some zone 2 for 30 to 45 minutes. And then Thursday, do some HIIT, micro intervals, or that Norwegian 4x4. If you only have room for 1 cardio day, start with zone 2 if stress or sleep is the bottleneck. Start with HIIT if time is the bottleneck and recovery is really solid. Here's the key. If you're combining resistance and cardio in the same day, do your resistance first and then your cardio. And eat within 1 hour of training. Don't wait hours, because you're signaling different adaptations when you're combining those training modalities, and both need fuel for you to get the best results. So HIIT versus zone 2 isn't really a debate, it's a strategy question. Zone 2 builds the base. HIIT builds the ceiling, a powerful, time-efficient signal. And the best plan is the one that you can recover from and repeat week after week without injury. So here's what you can do based on the time you actually have. If you've only got 3 hours per week, keep it simple and high return. Do 2 to 3 40-minute resistance sessions that are full body, and 1 to 2 short HIIT sessions on a bike or a rower works great. Because you're training just 3 hours out of 168, a lot of women can handle that intensity, as long as sleep stays solid and you're not stacking it on top of high life stress. If HIIT starts disrupting sleep or you feel wired and tired, pull it back to one session and add an easy zone 2 day instead, or some yoga or Pilates. If on the other hand, you're someone with a bit more time and you can train up to an hour per day, then you can run a more complete performance mix. You could do 3 to 4 resistance sessions per week, 1 to 2 HIIT sessions per week, always driven by your recovery, and 1 sprint style session per week, true short sprints. You can bolt this onto a resistance day on a bike or rower at the end. And then you would do 2 zone 2 sessions each week on your non-lifting days to build the base and support blood flow and recovery. Use zone 2 to keep your engine strong, and use intervals strategically to build your ceiling without turning every session into a grind. And if you want a simple next step beyond training, I've put together a free guide called 10 Habits That Help Me Reverse My Biological Age. The link is in the description below. And if this was helpful, like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, are you currently doing more zone 2 or HIIT? And what's the biggest thing that might be getting in your way?